Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I am Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning, also from Abuja. I'm Maukbe Ogun Yusuf.
And here in Lagos, the 21st of October, 2022. It's a Friday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Okay, Mr. Calendar. Thank you very much indeed. Please take a bow, take a bow. Well, yes, yesterday we spoke about that Nigeria startup bill and the huge potentials that it's got to addressing a lot of challenges that young people face in the country. So today we're picking up on that in the manner of speaking and focusing on addressing youth unemployment. And incidentally, the governor of Akwa Ibom State says, by the way, look, youth unemployment, as many may know, the current AFDB president, Mr. Additional, has also spoken in relation to that, how youth unemployment bulge is about, MBS puts it at 42.3% of those of the ages between 25 and 30, between the ages of 15 and 34, how something urgently needs to be done. But here, the governor of Akwa Ibom State thinks that he's of the opinion that human capital development is actually a panacea to addressing youth unemployment, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. He equally spoke about trade. Now, the thing about trade between Africa and Western countries, one region will always try to take advantage, but it's up to us then to see how we could put in those buffers to ensure that we protect our local businesses here. We've got Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement after, so what are we doing about all of those, for instance? But here's his view about what he thinks should be done to take us a step further than where we are.
If we talk about Africa and then trade for peace in Africa, we have a whole lot of commodities already, but there's no capacity building. In Africa today, when you're talking about unemployment, I say unemployment is not the issue. If we can build capacity, Africa have a whole lot of resources to trade with even other countries outside Africa. And if we have that capacity building, we can actually develop a whole lot of what we have that will enable us to trade with other countries and other places. It is true that if we actually trade under a common platform, under a fair trade platform, it could actually bring peace. But once there's an unfair platform against a fair platform of trading, it can never achieve certainly what we are looking for. Even take, for example, Ivory Coast, with all the cocoa that they have, it still ends up in Europe. Because the technology, everything, the drying processes, the processing processes, we don't have the technology. It still ends up in Europe. The question is, do we really derive the benefits of that in order to be able to see ourselves as that collaboration and that partnership? Because we can only do that if I really produce and then you come and then we trade. But if you come and produce what I have, you can't call that trade. When I came into office, I just discovered that the area we come from, we are so much rich in gas. And if we are this rich in gas, and through this we can actually produce a whole lot. So what do you do as a governor? I tried as much as practicable to say, hey, first of all, let's see how can we actually translate this. How can I take gas to become a urea?
Oftentimes, Chamberlain, the problem is never that we don't know what to do. We're always full of solutions, and they're usually workable solutions. I think the challenge we've had over the years is moving from solutions to, the solutions which we propose to implementation on a consistent basis.
Which is key.
Because oftentimes we try for a while, we begin to achieve some results, and then we go back to sleep. Or sometimes we try for a while, we see that it's not working, and nobody really wants to give it another try. Maybe perhaps because of criticisms that might have trailed the first one, etc. But I think that, if we know what the solutions are abundant. What he said now is not rocket science. It's what, was also a part of our educational system before now. Interestingly, I went to a technical school. I went to when I say technical school, the name of my school was DSC Technical High School. That's what it was. And we were one of those privileged schools that had facilities for woodwork. We learned technical drawing, we learned metal work, we learned, it depends on what your interests were, electrical, electronics. We had a full lab, a well-equipped lab for these, let's say, experiments and for these learnings. So that even as you're learning the theoretical parts of a lot of things, when you start, when you start to do Intratech, for instance, these things begin to stick fast. And you know, it could spur your interest. So for a long time, in my own household, I knew my father doing a lot of things. My father could make basic furniture. He could connect a lot of wires within the house. If something went wrong, electronically speaking, he could fix it. Or let's say electrically speaking. He could fix it because electronics are other sort of things. And a lot of that knowledge is now being lost. A lot of what we learn now are theory. And a lot of people are beginning to realize that it is wise for people to have skills. There is a huge focus now on skills. A lot of young people are beginning to catch on to the fact that, yes, it is important for me to finish my SSC and write that JAM exam, but it's also important for me to learn a skill, maybe tailoring. We've seen the proliferation of makeup artists, catering to a whole new industry, entertainment, Nollywood, etc. These are places where skills are what speak for you. Even, I mean, entertainment now, talk about acting. We used to take it for granted in those days that you'd be no good if you were just an actor. But look at what is happening. More and more people showing their skills in those areas. And now, how much more if we're learning the technical skills? Some people are trying to spur interest in agriculture, how young people can get interested. In those days, I remember my father telling me about the Obasanjo era, telling me about the Operation Feed Nigeria and how youth corpers were deployed to farms. They were given hectares and hectares of land to ensure that, you know, they produced food for the country. A lot of these things have been experimented with before. Why do we need to reinvent the wheel? I keep asking myself, yes, we're interested in agriculture now, but, you know, insecurity is a thing. But I don't think that that is an enough excuse, because how do we begin to account for, you know, people between the ages of 15 to 34 jobless? And we're surprised that we are suffering insecurity as a result. We're surprised that our GDP is not growing as fast as it ought to. And it's not because we still do not have the land, or it's not because our young people still do not have the intellect. I think, Chamberlain, what really needs to happen is that we need to be more sincere. We need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to, you know, be consistent with the efforts that we put into these programs. And whether or not, you know, if we feel that there is failure in certain areas, we should not be afraid to go back, revisit it. If there's criticism about how it is working, revisit it and see how we can tweak it to make it work. There's a lot of that now in our NYSC programs. NYSC is beginning to adopt a lot of these programs to see how they can equip our young people with skills when they go to the camps. But I would say that it's too little. I know it's not too late, but it's too little because they only do it for the 3 weeks that they're in the camps, and they are under a lot of pressure because now you have a deluge of graduates who are coming, you know, they have batch A, stream 1, stream 2, stream 3, you know, they have so many streams before they move to the next batch. So they're under a lot of pressure to keep catering for those people, but they're trying to see what it is that they can do within the shortest possible time. Can we be more deliberate about how we get our young people interested in the skills? The certificate is important, but more important are the skills that they're able to garner. Chamberlain.
Well, absolutely. I mean, well said. So all of those key issues, again, as you said, it's about how consistent we are with implementing all of this. So yes, we may not get it 100% the first time out, but we need to steady the ship, because if we don't, we may just be playing with a huge challenge on our hands. Ayo.
You guys have literally covered everything. Perhaps one or two things to just pick up, you know, from what you have all said. Chamberlain, you talked about what Professor Dr. Akiwumi Adesina mentioned, and he's been saying that consistently. Consistently. He's been very, very consistent, sustained that conversation until this very moment. The Operation Feed the Nation program, Malcolm, that you mentioned, is something that we did very well at in the First Republic. I mean, I keep talking about agriculture because as Chamberlain often says, I quote that all the time, you know what someone will do by what the person has done before. We know how successful we were with agriculture in the First Republic, where the regions knew each one's strength. But something curious in what the governor of Akwa Ibom said is that, look, we export raw materials and we import finished products, and we call that trading. I think it's something that should give government at all levels very serious concern. He said he tried as much as possible. That means that there were some things that were outside of his authority. If a constitutional review can address that, perhaps we might be able to speak that, more deliberately, and the state governors can take the lead in recruiting more people, taking more and more people out of poverty by improving the human capital development, human capital capacity of the students. The governor, the minister of labor once said that Nigerian graduates are unemployable. Whose fault is that? How futuristic is the syllabus that they use in the schools? We often talk about it here, that the first year study of a medical student expires by the time that fellow gets into second year. Many people have gone to school, studied computer science without ever seeing a computer before. Has that changed? Let's hope it has. So all of the arguments that ASU is talking about, revitalizing the university system, all these things are all encompassing. There are supposed to be gradations to our educational system. Exactly what do we have now? There is academics, there is technical education, as Mark mentioned, and there's so many other things that are components. What was the vision of the 6334 system? Is it playing out exactly the way? It's a whole conundrum of things that we only need, just first of all, to be clear what the direction is and to follow it consistently. It's not that we cannot do it. There was this security outfit under Marwa when he was administrator of Lagos. The governor of Lagos State who took over from him in a democracy, Bola Tinubu, decided to sustain that. That's what they call RRS today. Perhaps the same thing happened in several other states. Can we sustain such philosophies, such policies across board, whether it's federal or states, so that especially education can give true human capital development that can help us get out of the rut that we found ourselves over the years? Chamberlain.
Well, very, very well said, guys. And one thing is very clear on all of these things. We can do these things as a country. We can. And I don't see why not, why we shouldn't. But anyways, let's go ahead and take you through some of the dailies. And we will start with Leadership Friday, this Friday morning. And look at the lead story here. Hashtag NSAS. 2 years after, states fail to implement judicial panel's recommendations. That's a big lead here. The first of the writer says, CSOs, lawyers flay FG governors over dumping of probe reports. Never promised to compensate victims of police brutality ascribed to Rivers government. PMB urged to declare October 20 National Freedom Day. So, you thought that democracy was the thing, but now they say, look, make this a National Freedom Day. You wonder how they will internalize that. And then you have images of NSAS Memorial in Lagos yesterday, several of them on the front page here this morning, so you might as well just go ahead and see that one. So that is Leadership Friday today.
Well, I got caught up for a moment now on the back page of This Nigeria. Guess who's writing this morning? Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ebon Olu Adegburua, is writing on the back page, talking about Nigeria's road network failure. You might want to take a look at that. Well, look at what is on the front page, because we're supposed to be reviewing the front pages, aren't we? I just got caught up, let me carried away on the back page. But look at what's on the front page. A very disturbing story which broke yesterday. NIMSI officials nabbed registering foreigners.
Oh dear.
Yes, this revelation came out yesterday. There were questions as to how did that happen? I mean, did they take our equipment across the border? When we too were arresting them, how did we know they were there? Is it that the equipment sent signal? Look, I don't know. You want to read page 4 to get the details because this is exactly what it says. It's not mincing words. NIMC officials nabbed registering foreigners. That's what this Nigeria has for you on the front page.
This should, trigger several reactions, chain reactions.
Yeah.
We have to review the process, know who's where. I mean, Nigerians know pretty much who's the Nigerian when you see them.
Indeed.
So, indeed. Several questions. And this has implications for elections too. Who knows?
It does. Because
have we registered foreigners for elections too?
Big questions. Big questions. And this kind of controversies are not new in our elections. I mean, you've heard people have been quoted as saying, oh, we brought in foreigners to come and vote, etc. So you want to flip to page 4 to see just what the story is about. As troops kill 48 terrorists, arrest 60 logistics supplier in Northeast within 2 weeks. Nice. So the troops are doing the work that they're paid to do, that they have sworn to do, because sometimes it's not just payment, it's also about allegiance. Yeah. They're sworn to do it. Page 4 will give you all of the details. You also see here, a broken trust leads to Truss's exit 45 days after, as UK Prime Minister well, it was coming, but people didn't think it was going to come so soon, I mean, that resignation was a real big deal yesterday. This Nigeria has details for you inside of their paper. You also see here accolades for Wike as federal government honors Rivers governor with infrastructure delivery award. The story is on page 5 for you. I mean, hate him, love him. You cannot deny that he's done pretty well in the area of infrastructure. Page 5 is where you get details as to why the federal government has chosen to give him an award for the delivery of infrastructure in Rivers State. Look at this. Release Nnamdi Kanu, Southeast senators urge Buhari, federal government appeals, IPOB leaders acquittal. It's on page 5 of the paper, so it does look like this is going to the Supreme Court after all. Yeah, incidentally. That is also there on the front page. You have a number of other stories. I can't resist this one. Look at that, yes. I just saw it about the same time you did, Chamberlain. Inflation, local rice reaches record high 37,000 naira per bag. Oh, God. Yes, local rice.
Good old local rice.
Good old local rice. I mean, that Mr. Additional has been encouraging us to eat. And, in fairness, that is one policy that Mr. Additional started whilst he was Minister of Agriculture, and this government has also tried to keep faith with. So, over time, if you keep faith with one thing, regardless of whatever party is in power, the results will be clear. The results are not yet clear in terms of the price of a bag of local rice, but prayerfully, who knows what could happen when we are saturated with local rice.
This price needs to be
But 37,000 naira, especially as Christmas is coming,
that's a lot.
And now we hear that there are floods taking over rice farms.
Oh, wow.
If you can buy, just buy now, please. Even at 37,000 naira, buy now. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
First question that I would like to ask is, what's the size of that bag of rice? Is it 100 kg or 50 kg or 25 kg? Bukola, any ideas?
Well, I think you're referring to Mr. and Mrs. from yesterday, but it's 50 kg.
Okay, so 50 kg,
37,500.
I don't even want to go there.
And there are variations to the price depending on when you're buying from. Where you're buying from the main market, you could get for as low as 37,000 naira. But when you go further, to malls, you're thinking of buying between 40,000 naira and above.
And there are those who are still saying, with this flooding, who knows what's going to happen? Please, good news all the time. Vanguard newspaper on its front page this morning seems to be concerned about what we raised earlier, guys, concerning human capital development, but the angle is different. Look at it. Special report, out-of-school children hit 20 million as poverty, insecurity worsen. If children are out of school in another 20 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, are they going to be human capitally developed? Is that good English? I don't even know. But you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Are they going to be developed in terms of human capital? Are they going to be employable? Are they going to be productive to the nation? Or are they going to be a burden? It's something that needs to give us concern. Look at the writers. Sad British lives of 20 million out-of-school children. As a quote, kids into alcohol, hard drugs, smoking. Situation escalating in South states. Wow. Governments pass back highlight measures to tackle menace in some states. Most street children in rivers cross river from north. It's a special report on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper, something certainly that needs to be given a lot more attention to. And right under the picture on the front page, second anniversary, police tear gas end SARS protesters at Lekki toll gates. I'm not even going to say anything about that one, because it's very, very concerning enough. Okay, since you mentioned Mr. and Mrs., and today is Friday, Mr. is saying to Mrs., who is wearing a big head tie, "You're the most beautiful woman in the world. I don't want any man to touch you." And Mrs. asks a question, including the family doctor? That's Vanguard newspaper this morning.
Well, I don't know the objective of Mr. and Mrs. this morning. I think I'll just stick to the fifth, not less humorous. Okay, so from Vanguard, let's turn our attention to Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune is our next paper this morning. And what it leads with is critical to the beginning of the conversation. It will determine how soon we'll get to our dream of achieving human capital development in this country. It leads thus, Anyoku 2023 poll crucial to Nigeria attaining its dream. Let's take a look at the writers. Wants Nigerians to vote for who will prioritize revamping of governance system, reiterates need for fewer federating units, decentralization of security system, asks country to look up to India. It's a page 22 read for you inside the Nigerian Tribune. So the question is, who will prioritize these key areas? Decentralization of security system and, you know, unity, restructuring of the country. It's for you to decide as we head to the polls in 2023. Let's take a look at some other stories. This one came in yesterday. 10 burned as petrol tanker explodes on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It was not quite sure what the casualty figure was from that accident yesterday, but it's become clearer now. This is really sad, you know, and it begs the question about how much attention should be drawn to, or the lack of it rather, to the concerns from the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. This happened in the early hours of the day, so perhaps it was a result of poor lighting on the expressway because it was a head-on collision involving some vehicles.
Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, that means someone must be driving against traffic.
Let's go above the nameplates to do a check on some more stories before we exit. This one reads this way: relief to states as NEC sets to review repayment modalities, raises committee on flood mitigation. It's a page 26 read. And lastly, CAN president will investigate members listed on APC Presidential Campaign Council. Also, there's still some rumble coming from, you know, the curious attendance of some clerics at, you know, a political party meeting some months ago. Well, if you want more details, you'll find it inside the Nigerian Tribune, page 23 to be precise. That's where we drop the anchor for the Nigerian Tribune.
To Telegraph next, 2023, Tinubu unveils 80-page renewed Hope Action Plan as Buhari inaugurates APC's PCC. Buni left 7.5 billion naira legal debts ascribed to Adamu. Besides, he can't speak for Osinbajo, Amechi, others. But wait a minute, 7.5 billion naira? Wow. Kalu Hill's new campaign list debunks exclusion. Can president distances self from the list? So you have all of that packed here, about 6-7 pages, 4-5 pages thereabouts of the story. It's just there for you. And then this, NEC sets up panel on CBN's deduction of budget support facility from state allocation. Sets up, I mean, that's been a thing with states, how they were up in arms with the CBN in terms of, or even with the governments concerning whether or not they were meant to pay back that, I mean, some called it bailouts, they gave it budget support, all sorts of names, but it turns out it wasn't free for the state. They were supposed to pay it back. But now, CBN, NEC has set up a panel to look into that deduction, so who knows what becomes of that.
But they knew from day one that they were going to pay it back. The federal government did not mince words about that.
But some of them carried on.
It said very clearly that they were going to pay it back.
And they carried on as though now maybe government was joking. But now look at this, because why would he set up a panel if you thought they all were on the same page on that one? So of course the panel will say, okay, wait. Can there ever be a political solution to this? This is finance, it's straight up. But who knows?
Take a loan, you pay it back. Otherwise, the state goes broke.
You never just know what somehow some of this thinking goes. But there's equally this, appears as though the fine print, it says, sets up committee on flood mitigation. US donates, what, to $1 million in humanitarian assistance to Nigeria. So clearly, a lot needs to be done about that. That's New Telegraph this morning.
You know, sometimes you want to, when you see the queues that you see right here in the FCT as a result of the fuel scarcity, you know, you just, even though you're still not hearing anything, but you know that is a small price to pay compared with those who have been displaced, who have lost property, who have lost everything as a result of the flood. Some of them even lost their lives as a result of the flood.
Without any hope.
Without any hope. So, nonetheless, I mean, if there's still something we can do to ease the pains of those in the FCT and around, because, I mean, the few queues are something else this morning. But whilst we bring that to your attention, we also will say that a lot of attention needs to be paid to those who are currently displaced, who are currently, you know, harboring, taking refuge in IDP camps. I'm just hoping that something will be done drastically to be able to ease the pain for those people. Chairman, look at this. Daily Trust has this on its front page. Customs sacks over 2,000 officers for corruption. That's according to Hamid Ali. Expresses concern over meeting 3 trillion naira target to raise $176 billion after total automation of operations. Justifies tax increase on vehicles. Yes, Jimberlin, if you try to buy a car now.
Is that justiciable? Oh, boy.
Well, you have to have some money first.
So those who will feel it, it won't be never justified.
Well, the country needs to raise money. Page 5 is where you get details. So you see that justifies tax increase on vehicles. Corruption high under Buni committee. That's according to Adamu. So APC still has its, will I say, internal wranglings. Federal government to privatize Ajaokuta Steel. That's according to a minister. Then look at the story. We took a part of it yesterday, giving you some traffic advisory right here in our studios as a result of that head-on collision, which we reported here. 10 burned to death as tanker explodes on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And this sort of accidents really are needless if only we'll be a little more careful, if only we'll be a little more patient. Even right here on the Maraba Road coming into the FCT, a lot of our colleagues couldn't get to work until about noon yesterday, even though they set out as early as 6, some of them 7 a.m. Because, you know, there was also an accident along that way. We just need to be more careful in terms of how we, you know, drive and use our highways. You also have a number of other stories which I might leave you to do yourself. Federal government appeals judgment acquitting Kanu. You saw that earlier. But look at the Siemens transformers will boost power supply from November. So set your calendar to November and you know,
So
monitor your electricity.
So what? It should be in November to remember? Oh,
Chimele,
wow.
you can form a lyric if you like, but it says what it says.
Well, they should please don't dash our hopes this time.
I hope they don't, to be honest, because really what we're asking for is electricity. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Okay, I'm not going to keep my hopes up, and I'm not going to stop my clock, guys. Not that I have doubts. I'm just not going to hold my breath. Nigerian News Direct this morning has on its front page, Tinubu Shetima candidacy, reconciliation of Osinbajo Amechi, other presidential aspirants still in progress. That's ascribed to the party national chairman Adamu, says rot, debt of 7.5 billion naira inherited from Boni-led CEC-PC, and a number of other riders right there on the front page of the paper. Buhari plans inauguration of APC Presidential Campaign Council today to unveil Tinubu's manifesto policy document. All of that you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning, page 3 to be precise. This is an interesting one on the front page. Kogi receives first derivation allocation as oil-producing state. So many other stories you'll find interesting on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
And from Nigerian News Direct, let's take a quick look at the Guardian newspapers. Have we gone there this morning?
Go ahead.
Yes, the Guardian newspaper leads with a story on, from the aviation sector. And this is how it is captioned. Nigeria Air revs on excess budget. Doubtful partnership model. And the riders go this way. Only Ethiopia Airlines bid for new national carrier. How 49% ownership control by foreign interests will rob Nigeria on Bassa routes. Stakeholders, it is another private interest masquerading as national carrier. Project to mimic Virgin Nigeria's mistake. So many views, well, no less cogent. But for how long have we been on the Air Nigeria project? What are the, factors delaying the takeoff of the project? Whether or not it's a private interest masquerading as a national carrier, the important thing is that, when it comes on board, it will go a long way, to reduce the hardship that the sector is, travelers are currently feeling as a result of, well, it's my hope.
Oh, okay.
We've had so
Is
many
it going to
stories
operate in a different aviation sector in Nigeria?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
but we've had so many exits of airlines from the sector. So it is the hope that, we need more participants to come on board to reduce the pain.
Are all the issues bedeviling the other airline operators in the country being addressed?
Well, your questions cannot be dismissed.
I'm just asking,
Let's leave it there for the big story as we go, beneath the nameplates to take a look at some stories. We've done a check on the Ogun tanker accident from yesterday, so we'll just leave that one. There's this one right beside it. Alaba market leaders confirm 3 deaths, 28 injured persons in clash with Agberos. Those are, transporters or merchants by the roadside who demand a fee for, the transporters carrying passengers along the road. And there's been a lot of, unrest in that axis in Lagos. So security operatives need to, pay more attention to that area so that peace can be restored. And lastly, from the front page of The Guardian, there's this one that will interest you. Mental disorder, how economic security uncertainties, COVID-19 fuel numbers. That's an interesting one, and it's pages 4 and 5 read inside The Guardian.
Something very, very concerning, really, because we don't even understand the meaning of mental disorder. I've come to understand that a high level of anxiety is a mental disorder, and that's prime because of the economic situation in the country.
Yeah, and more often than not, it starts with depression, and those are the triggers, for mental disorder. Depression is masked often by people who are on the streets who look perfectly normal like you and I, but they have issues that they are dealing with, and that, is seen in a lot of suicides. It's another conversation entirely.
Altogether, yeah.
So we'll just have to leave it there and drop the anchor for The Guardian newspaper.
Take a look at Daily Independent next, and the theme here is bailout funds. Breather for states as FG halts monthly debt deductions. What a perspective they've got here. So there you go. Perhaps, let's see if the writers will explain it. FG states stakeholders to find solutions to flooding problem. Okay, this is a different one. And then NPHCDA says 46 million persons have been fully vaccinated. So that's what it is with that particular one right there. And then the other headline at the bottom strip, it will be difficult for us to meet 3.01 trillion naira targets that's ascribed to customs. And sometimes when these agencies, prioritize, okay, well, at least if revenue generation ranks topmost on their scale of preference, it may just perhaps affect their functions and operations in terms of the focus, such that they may just be seen to be competing with businesses. But look, that narrative has been making the rounds for a while now. Who knows if it will help in any way to ensure that they provide the service primarily above all else, and then perhaps revenue generation secondary. Yeah, that can be possible. There you go. That wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will take just a moment and we'll be back. Don't go away.
It's the second anniversary of the NSAS protest and agitation by youths against police brutality in Nigeria on October the 20th, 2020. Members of the NSAS movement arrived early at the Lekki Toll Gate area in Lagos for a scheduled remembrance walk for those who allegedly lost their lives during the protest in 2020. This time, their demands are limited and straight to the point.
There are people still in prison till today. We want them released. So all we are asking for is justice. That's all we want. That's why we're here. And of course, to honor those that have died, letting them know that we will never forget. The government set up the panel, and the panel confirmed the killings. The government, the panel made recommendations. Until date, none of those recommendations have been met.
I came here to join others to just remember our great heroes. These are the real heroes of Nigeria, modern day Nigeria, not those who were drinking tea in London to get independence.
Keep moving. Sorry, sis. What do you want? Don't make it an unlawful gathering. Please keep on moving.
Their movement across the toll gate area, however, causes a stir and traffic congestion in the area. An attempt by the crowd to move to the restricted area at the toll plaza changed the narrative. These anti-riot personnel arrived at the scene, releasing tear gas canisters. Hot water from the standby cannon chased them out of the area. Mrs. Olabisi Abidin, an Akwa Ibom state-born Ndifreke Banga, says they lost their children during the 2020 NSAS protest. While Olabisi explains that she has been compensated by the state government, Mrs. Ibanga alleges that her quest has all been in vain.
It's not just about dying, that's getting to confirm that getting to see the photo of the son being shot dead, and that since then he has not been able to see, or she has not been able to see his corpse, and the state of their well-being, that they've been struggling.
Back at the day's demonstration, a few persons were arrested and later released.
They were all unanimous in their demands that they were here to celebrate the second anniversary of the NSAS protest. They also called for the implementation of the NSAS panel report, and they asked that those who were still in detention should be released. From the Lekki toll gate here in Lagos, Shola Sheyele reporting for Channels Television News.
Closure. That's the word that perhaps a number of people haven't really come to terms with concerning, what happened 2 years ago. I also remember that exactly 2 years ago today, 21st, we woke up on the morning of the day to, how do I put this now, lick our wounds of the things that happened the previous day. And I was on the streets, trying to cover, report live. And on live television, I was attacked, so... but we're still hoping that we'll have the Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, who is also a senior advocate of Nigeria, Tony Ojukwu, to join us in discussing this, especially the human rights angle and some of the issues that have been raised, by some of the people who were out there, at the event yesterday, which, of course, you just saw in that report. So it's something definitely concerning. Human rights.
Yes, indeed. I recall that memorable day, and I had my heart in my mouth when I heard your story. And we all have our NSAS story. I had a narrow escape myself. I would have been caught in the fray of some of my colleagues, who were murdered in unwholesome circumstances. And the commemoration of the event still raises a lot of questions that haven't been answered. One of which is, what have we learned from the hashtag NSAS experience? Look at what happened at the Lekki toll gate yesterday. Even though security operatives had, made a proviso that the convergence or the procession must be moving, the treatment of the protesters, still leaves a sour taste in the mouth. Why do we dismiss, the Nigerian youth in this country?
I think it's only a matter of time. All of the issues are definitely going to be addressed. It's a human rights issue, and we hope to have the Executive Secretary of the Human Rights Commission to speak to us. But that's just one of several stories, a number of topics that we'll have to discuss this morning. Another one takes off shortly in Abuja.
Yes, indeed. We will get back to the NSAS matter as we progress on the program here today. But as you've seen there, we've got two gentlemen joining us this morning to focus on developments in Imo State politically. Declan Emelumba is the Commissioner for Information for Imo State. We also have Collins Sopuruza, who is the Publicity Secretary of the PDP in Imo State. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for coming out today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, it is a political season in the state, so much as elections in the state will be coming up much later for the governorship. So what is the environment, the atmosphere, politically speaking now? How does it feel in the state? We know that there's been several comments here and there about, developments and what's going on. How is it at the moment there?
Well, I think so far, Imo is calm, and we are recording progress every day, and the people are happy with the government. But I want to say, as an opening remark, that one of the reasons why I opted to come for this program, I opted to come because I watched the program this week, sometime, I think Tuesday or so, where my very good friend Zere Maga was on the program, and I think that he didn't respect the truth, and I need to clarify a few things as a matter of starting. First of all, he claimed that in the election that produced Right Honorable Emekin Hedioha as the governor, he claimed that in Bombise, he said that we are hearing here, that what PDP is called is 20,000. That's very, very far from the truth. What they returned, it was 64,000 against the accredited number of voters captured by the card reader, which was less than 3,000. And they returned 64,000 votes. And I remember you were asking the man who was saying that whether he was INEC, whether he conducted the election. I can tell you that, yes, he did, because he compromised every process. and then went and wrote result. From that is local government bringing 64,000 votes. And
who compromised the process?
The right on making it and Imo PDP. And the stage was set by Ray.
How did he compromise the process?
He compromised the process because the card reader recorded 3,000 registered voters that came out to, less than 3,000 actually, they came out to vote. But he returned 64,000 votes. I don't know from where he got it, so that compromised the process.
So was there any ruling that said he compromised the process?
Was there any, we don't need any ruling. I said the card reader, you can find out. And you know the interesting thing is that your channel announced the results. And so when...
But we didn't announce that he compromised the process.
No, you announced the result. You announced this figure I'm mentioning. So whether you announced it, but if card reader said you had less than 3,000 registered voters who came out to vote and he returned 64,000, they definitely don't need anybody to tell you that the thing was compromised. But above that, more interestingly, you know, they were talking about, Ray said that in Oru East, the local government of my governor, distinguished Senator Obuzodinma, that APC lost in that local government. He said that, and that is not true. Check your own record. From the announcement, APC won the presidential election, won the governorship in Oru East, and they won by 24,000 votes.
I think it's very important to go back to where the conversation started from. I know that you want to respond to what you might perceive to be, you want to clarify certain things that were said here on the program, but where we started from was this conversation on the person who has gone to court to stop beavers.
Yes.
And that's something that is of grave concern to a lot of Nigerians, because beavers has been hailed as the innovation that has been brought into this 2023 elections, and hopefully will make it a little more transparent than when we had the card readers. So if we're beginning to hear that somebody is going to court to try and stop the use of card reader, everybody is rightly disturbed. The accusation that has now come is that your governor is the one who is sponsoring the person who is trying to, you know, scuttle the use of the beavers machine. Now, I do not know, first and foremost, if you want to respond to that, because what we've also heard is that your state, I think it has come from your state that, it's not the governor, but the immediate past governor of the state who is trying, Right Honorable Emeka Ihedioha, who is trying to, and I think he was the one who said, you know, he doesn't have any interest. It should be people who are currently standing for re-election, etc., who will have that sort of interest.
Well, I mean, that's one of the greatest fallacies, because if there is anybody who wants beavers to be used, I think it should be our government and our governor. Because, practical example, we had a by-election in Ngobala. Beavers were used, and APC won, defeated PDP, hands down. Beavers were used. So why should we be afraid of beavers? So, and then, since we came on board, we have had 2 by-elections. Okigwe Senatorial Zone, APC won, and in each case, they removed PDP. In Ngobala House State constituency elections, APC won, and they removed PDP. So, and you know, particularly in Ngobala, beavers were used, and we won. Now, so when anybody tells you that we don't want to leave beavers, I don't know how. At any event, the person you mentioned who went to court, I issued a statement on that when that came out. The person is a lady who went and took the stamp of office of his colleague. And the man is a lawyer. He came out openly to say, this lady came and took my stamp of office and said she lost her own, that he wants to do a land deal for somebody. And used that stamp of office to go and file this court matter about beavers. And that he is not aware of it and is illegal. And we traced that lady to be an associate of Right Honorable Mekinyodoa. So they went to court. That was why they were the first. They said there's a secret court case. How do you know there's a secret court case if you were not part of it originally? They were the people who mentioned it, say a secret court case, and then you are turning around to blame the governor.
Okay, so, Mr. Professor, what do you think of what's going on?
All right, for you to make sense of what is happening in Imo State today, you must refer back to the election in 2019, which Senator Hope Uzodinma never won. So we have an illegitimate government in Imo State. For instance, in the build-up to the 2019 governorship election, there were 2 or 3 major outings that governorship candidates undertook. One was the debates organized by BBC. 2 was another debate organized by Imo community in Europe at Rockview Hotels. And the 3rd was the one organized by Imo Elders Advisory Council. Senator Hope Uzodimma never participated in any of those debates. He was never seen in any campaign rally. He never participated in the election, and he deservedly came distant fourth in the election. And unduly, the Supreme Court imposed him on Imo people. And you need to know the political culture of the Igbos. Check throughout history, Igbo people have relentlessly resisted imposition of political authority. You know about the Ekumeko uprisings of Anioma people. You know about the Aro wars against the colonial masters. You know about the Aba women riot. They were all efforts and attempts by Igbo people to express themselves. They are naturally and they are unrepentantly democratic, acephalous, and Republican. And today in Imo, you have a government that never came through the ballot. You have a government that the people never elected. Therefore, the umbilical cord, the symbiotic relationship that should exist between the government and the people is totally absent. That is one of the situations. Also, in view of the imposition of Senator Hope Uzodimma as governor of Imo State, he has not justified the mandate which he got through the courts. I'm coming. He has not justified the mandate. For instance, let me shock you. Imo State in the last 31 months has gotten a total of 631.4 billion naira. This is a sum total of... I'm coming to that.
How did you get that figure?
Thank you so much. The FAC allocations to the state, about 153 billion. Allocations to the local government, 127 billion. IGR, 31 billion. You have the 13% derivation to the in view of the oil we have in Imo State, which is almost about 29 billion. And other interventions, about 90 billion, that's the SDGs and the UBEC. That's 400 billion. And he has also obtained loans, totaling about 233.4 billion. So now you have about 633.4 billion naira mismanaged in the last 31 months by Governor Hope Uzodimma. No.
Why you say it's mismanaged?
Thank you very much. Because when you get to Imo State today, you cannot see a single project that justified that such humongous amount has come to Imo State. For instance, in September 2021, he brought President Muhammadu Buhari to commission an uncompleted project, Ihiagwa Naked the Road. And when we shouted, he said, no, it's just the first phase. President Muhammadu Buhari left. That road was not completed. In September 2022, he again brought President Muhammadu Buhari to commission an uncompleted Owerri-Okigwe Road. We shouted again, said it will be completed. The one of last year has not been completed. He brought President He brought President Muhammadu Buhari again to commission a project that was done 30 years ago by Dey Simon Bakwa, our iconic leader. He repainted an old House of Assembly complex. I'm telling you, for you to understand the level of disease going on in Imo State, well, Senator Hope Uzodimma brought the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
You raised a lot of issues.
I'm coming. I'll get to that.
He needs to respond to...
Chamberlain, I'm coming. I'm not landed. He brought the Vice President of Nigeria, repainted an old and abandoned property at Amako here in Owerri, and said, Kumbaya, everybody. I have established a garment-making factory in Imo State. He went and procured 8 sewing machines, put in the old building. Vice President of Nigeria commissioned that building. 24 hours later, he removed all the sewing machines and shut down the place. That is the level of disease that is going on in Imo State.
At this
moment, there is no garment making factory in Imo. And then, remember again, relevant rating boards have always called Imo poor in terms of development. Imo occupies the top positions in all the indices of social misery in Nigeria. For instance, today, NBS has classified us as the unemployment capital of Nigeria, with 83% of youth completely out of job. Remember today, 1 in every 5 Imo women has issues with cancer. The government of Senator Hope Uzodimma has not, the government of Senator Hope Uzodimma has not established even a single cancer screening center in the state. So he has not justified the humongous
don't worry, just hang on.
I've not made the point I need to make. For instance, in the face of the legitimacy crisis of Senator Hope Uzodimma and his inability to justify the mandate he has stolen.
Let him respond to some of the ones you raised.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. You know, it's unfortunate, very unfortunate that PDP has decided to live in self-denial. First and foremost, I don't know why you have not interrogated PDP people to ask them, did they make Ihede Oha win the governorship election in 2019? He did not. He did not meet the constitutional requirement I'm coming, sir.
Well,
I'm
Mr.
coming, sir.
Menaba,
I'm coming,
he
sir.
was declared winner.
No, excuse me, sir. When he was talking aloud, please, no, you have to allow me.
If it's a factual matter,
it's a
we have to
factual matter.
correct
I'm making a factual
He
matter.
was declared winner.
No. He was declared winner illegally because he didn't meet the constitutional requirement, and that was why the court removed him. I'm coming. Don't tell me he was declared winner.
He was declared winner. That's a fact. No, I will tell that.
Yes,
that
but
was
INEC has declared people who didn't win elections.
So you can't say we shouldn't tell you. That's a fact.
That is the essence of court.
So address the issues.
Yes, I'm addressing it. So first of all, PDP committed vicious brutalization of the constitution, and they need to apologize to Imo people. Have they ever told you the spread, how the result, how did he win? So when you didn't win an election, then, because excuse me,
there's
sir,
a sitting governor right
excuse
now.
me, sir, he said he called Hope Uzodinma's government illegitimate, and you don't want me to talk about the crime they committed against the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's not fair now. And now when you talk about, he was saying that Hope Uzodinma has not done this. Now I want you to check. Making Hedioha was in government for 7 months. Within that 7 months, by June 2019.
But would you Mr. Menaba, look, he's
no, you're interrupting me so much. You're interrupting me. No.
There is a sitting governor right now.
Yes,
this issue is not about Emeka Hedioha.
No, but
he's spoken
there
about.
There is no way I can talk about the sitting governor without referring to what he said. And you gave him time.
I'm the state public secretary of
Yes, I'm the commissioner for information of Imo State.
We have to talk about what is going on in Imo. Emeka Hedioha is not the governor of Imo State. He's not the governor of Imo State. Let's talk about Imo State.
Okay, just hold on. Respond to the issues.
Now, I'm telling you that because we're talking about debt profile and so on. By June 2019, Imo State had a debt profile of 148 billion. That was before Emeka Hedioha came in. By December 2019, when he had stayed about 6 months, just about a few days before he was removed, Imo State debt profile climbed to 204 billion. That means these are
just
facts.
Hold on,
these are facts. No.
You respond to it.
If he doesn't want this interview, excuse me.
Any day you advise me to take a loan, I will fire you.
You respond. Don't worry. You respond. Just hold on.
If he doesn't want this to be a civilized discourse, then we can
go ahead.
Haywire if he wants.
Civilized discussions are not
just hang on.
Just hold on. Just what you are saying, then we can have.
Just hold on. So we'll make it decent. Please go ahead.
He borrowed 48 billion within 6 months.
Do you have the documents?
Yes, I have the documents. Google it is everywhere. Secondly, now within that same period, he embezzled 19 billion of local government funds. Audit report of government is there. He claimed he was building stadiums. And so there was absolutely no single project.
Is there available audit report to show
Yes,
this?
there is. You don't allow us to come here with documents. My phone.
Who said we don't allow you? Who told you that?
All of they're in my phone. They remove my
Your phone?
Yes, of course.
No, you can't bring phones to the studio. If you knew you were coming to the program, you should have brought those hard copies.
No. I mean, I don't need hard copies. I would have shown you.
No, we have to see the hard copies. You said you knew you were coming. But go ahead.
Chamberlain, I want to plead with you. You are from Imo State.
What has that
it has everything to do. I hope you are not an interested party because the way you are interjecting and interrupting me, I don't like it.
For the avoidance of that, Mr. Menaba,
yes,
he has leveled.
And you won't allow me to talk. Why?
Because
why won't you allow me to talk?
Address the issues.
No, I'm addressing the issues. You don't tell me whether I'm addressing the issues or not. You should allow me to
tell you that.
No.
If we ask you a question, you have to answer it.
I'm not in a school.
If you don't want to answer the question, we go ahead with the next program. So go ahead.
Fine. So I'm saying that within that period, he embezzled 19 billion of Imo State people's money. Ask him, what is the single project that they did within 7 months? Our government has built over 100 and something roads. It's an insult to say that the president came to commission uncompleted projects. The president gets advice. He gets advice before he comes to commission projects in Imo State. People go, his team goes to assess.
All right, we're due for a break. But we will come back. You haven't responded to some of the issues that are raised about those other factories, but we're due for a break now.
Which factories? I'm coming to that.
We will come back in a moment, and you'll respond to those issues, and then he will equally speak to them. Please join us again. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, just getting some information that the immediate past wreck, Professor Emeka Ezeonu, is being investigated by INEC concerning the matters that were reported about the so-called snatching of beavers and the likes, which is out there in the news, but that's a different matter entirely. But Mr. Menaba, you're making a point as to the issue he raised concerning whether or not, as we speak, there's a garment factory operating.
I don't know why you're so much interested in the garment factory alone, because you also talked about uncompleted roads that he claimed to be commissioned. However, if you're interested in the garment factory, I invite you to where they come there. The garment factory is there, is working. I can invite you. I pay your ticket. If you come and you don't see it, then you know that now.
I'm not interested in anything whatsoever.
Oh, good, beautiful.
Please,
so
just
it
go
is
ahead.
working. They just tell lies like children. So I'm not surprised. I said the governor fixed a road over there, Tolu, which has been perennially abandoned by previous administrations. And the president came and commissioned that road, and the president was impressed. President commissioned the Owerri to Okigwe, ending at Amaraku Junction. President was impressed. He commissioned a dilapidated, completely dilapidated, if you check here this thing, when that commissioning was happening, we put an advert here and showed the carcass that was the House of Assembly in Imo State and what the governor did. Turned it around, completely built it and commissioned it. And he's saying it's an old, okay, during their tenure, House of Assembly members were not sitting there. They abandoned the place because it was a health risk. The roofs caved in, nobody could sit there. The governor came and fixed it and put state-of-the-art modern gadgets, communication gadgets, and commissioned it. And the President Buhari was so impressed that after what he did, he told the governor, you are talking of road revolution, but I'm telling you what they are doing is infrastructural revolution. Now, if you are talking about Imo State, if you go by statistics, Imo is 5th in terms of GDP growth in the whole 36 states. Is 11th in terms of ease of doing business in the whole of 36 states. It is 5th again in terms of IGR generation. And the richest 10 states is number 5 in terms of IGR generation. Now, we have rehabilitated
unemployment.
Unemployment, this government empowered, trained, and equipped youths in the different skills, and empowered over 15,000 youths within the period we have been there. So this one is, every day I've heard him so many times talking of unemployment capital. You know, it's easy to talk anything you want to talk. Nobody will stop you, but it's not a fact.
I'm interested in the fact that you just talked about, how do I put it now? You just talked about the loans, and you claim that they borrowed some money.
Yeah, definitely.
The previous governor borrowed some money whilst he was in office. However, this controversy on loan didn't just come up today.
Yes.
It would seem that there has been a back and forth before now on this issue of loans, where there has been a dispute over how much, to what tune is the Imo State government indebted. From what you know, the Commissioner for Information, to what tune would you say that the Imo State government is indebted?
As of June this year, June 2022, Imo State debt profile is 210 billion.
Why do you say June? Why not today? As of today?
Well, no, that statistics is not readily available. I'm sure that he wouldn't have it as of today. You know, so as of June 2022, that's this year, which is just a few months away, the debt profile is 210 billion. Now, this government has...
you know why I'm raising this?
Yes.
Because apparently it's been a sore point for your government and the previous government in office. At that time, you did not accuse, when you responded to the accusations which were raised at a forum, I think was outside of this country, or it was being hosted by a group of people, you did not say that, oh, but you borrowed some money as well. You didn't bring up this issue of 40 billion, which you claim, no, that was not reported?
Well, it was reported. It was reported in the newspapers at least. I did. And I have the cuttings of the report. I did. Because there's no way we could have addressed that without... This is a fact. By the time they came in within their 7 months in office, the debt profile was 148 billion. Within 6 months, it climbed to 204. So they borrowed money. And what did they do with the money?
How much did you say it currently stands at?
210. I mean, 210. So maybe an addition of about 9 billion or thereabout. Now, the important thing is, what did they do with the money? Within 7 months that Right Honorable Making Headway was in office, he was traveling every month outside the country. And within 7 months that he was in government, all he did was to expand and consolidate his personal estates in Owerri and in the village. He sacked
those accusations. Yes. I want to quickly read something to you here.
Okay.
This is from a newspaper. Imo, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, This is actually Cross River State recorded over 50% unemployment rate. This was as at sometime in March 2021.
Yes.
These are some of the statistics that we're seeing right here. Imo always is mentioned when unemployment is mentioned in Nigeria as one of the worst ranking states.
Yeah, but
are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm aware. But
do you accept that?
No. The question is, what was the situation when we came in? The situation was worse. We have been addressing it. That's why it's going down. It's going down every day. I'm telling you, right now, just last week, the governor is the first state in Nigeria that has established a digital economy ministry. And last week, we launched the digital economy employment. In the next 6 months, we are going to employ 1,000 youths.
Okay, well, I wish that you would be able to put a figure to how many youths you have unemployed and what you're hoping to reduce it by. Well, let me come to your counterpart here on the program this morning. I'm just wondering, will it be kind, or maybe kindness is not the word now, will it be factual to say that, oh, somebody just put paint over a building and commissioned it? Is that really what happened, or was it refurbished? Was it rehabilitated and refurbished to the point where they could invite a president to commission it, or vice president?
A lot of lies have been said here, and I wouldn't want to start talking about them. Let us face the facts and discuss Imo the way it is today. For instance, I was making a point that in view of the failures of this government of Senator Hope Uzodimma to account for the 633.4 billion naira that has accrued to the state in the last 31 months. And there's this disenchantment and rising resentment in the state. It has now resorted to all manner of things to contain the situation. And part of it is forgery. The man seated right beside me was the one that contracted somebody.
I asked the question. I will respond. You haven't answered my question, and I need you to answer that question.
I will answer the question in a very simple way.
Yeah.
Senator Hope Uzodimma repainted an old building built by Dey Samon Bakwe
in
1983.
Just a moment.
Okay.
Indeed, that building might have existed.
Yes.
But I'm saying, is it factual to say that somebody just put paint over it? Was the building in use when, you know, people started, when it was repainted? Was it in use? Has it been in use for the past how many years?
The only moment that the building was not in use was the period that they asked House of Assembly members to move out so that it could be repainted. That's a fact. But I'm coming. It's my moment. Then let's look at what's going on.
Just a moment. Let me clarify this. Are you saying then that members of the House of Assembly sat in that particular building whilst, I mean, for the 6 months that
definitely that is the fact. Sir, can you calm down? Can you calm down? Yes, that is the fact. So I think with what I just said now, the issue of House of Assembly has been settled. Can I now go on with other issues?
As he settled it,
it's settled. Everybody knows that. I have the moment, please. I have
the last 8 years. Go and verify.
I have the moment, please.
Let him respond.
Okay. Now, in the face of the failures of the government of Senator Hope Uzodimma has now resorted to all manner of contrivances to contain the political tension in the state, especially the rising resentment against his regime, which, of course, you know, is illegitimate. And part of what they have resorted to now is to clone voices and forge letters of prominent leaders of the opposition.
Just a moment. You continue to say that Governor Hope Uzodimma's government is illegitimate, as if he is the first governor that a Supreme Court has declared a winner. There are many governors, I mean, in our history, on our new
that came forth in an election.
Just a moment. There are governors in our democratic dispensation who felt aggrieved, went to the court, and, you know, their mandates were, will I say, restored. Yeah. When you continue to say that, just a moment, when you continue to say that, you continue to cast aspersions on the Supreme Court of Nigeria. I hope you're aware of that.
No. It was Senator Hope Uzodimma that sat in the seat of power of Imo State and said, the process that brought me here was a Ben Johnson way. I came in through the Ben Johnson way. I have it, I will tender it right away. So he was the one that called himself an illegitimate governor who came in through the shortcut. So nobody is wrong to describe Hope Uzodimma as an illegitimate governor.
I'm just saying that when you continue to say that,
he called himself a governor that came in through the Ben Johnson way. So I am not wrong in calling him a governor that came in through the Ben Johnson way. He's aware of this. They tried to manage the backlash then, but they failed because it was on national television. Therefore, in view of the fact that the government has failed, they have now resorted to all manner of contrivances, one of which is to fabricate stories. For instance, the letter that they claim that Right Honorable Meki Hedon had wrote to Malami was fabricated by him at number 12 Yuba Street in Owerri. The boy that he gave contract to do that has confessed that he will even return the 200,000 he was paid.
Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid we need to go. We're out of time. We've exceeded way more than that. Pardon me, even my colleagues in Lagos couldn't even come in. Okay. All right. Well, okay, guys, they have a question or two for you. Go ahead, guys.
Well, perhaps just one or two questions, Chamberlain. Let me ask Mr. The Commissioner for Information. All of these things that we're talking about is essentially about performance of government at various levels and how, useful those things are to the people of the state. I'm looking at the State of the States report, that was released for this year by budget. And in that report, they said that the state's performance, on the state's performance ranking, Imo State came 26th. With a 3.91 index. Essentially, this one is talking about how the states either need to work harder on growing their internally generated revenue, considering the size of their operating expenses, or work on pruning their operating expenses. Is this a report coming 26th on the list out of 36 states? Is this something that the state government is concerned about, accept or reject?
Of course, we totally reject it. These reports, I don't know the one you're quoting. They come here and there, left, right.
It is the state of the State of States reports by budget for 2022.
But done by who?
Budgets.
Budget.
Yes.
In fact, ask budget. They even apologized to us because we took it up with them. Find out. They apologized to us. I have it. That they erroneously put us there. That budget, they find out from them. We took it up with them, and they found out that they said they made a mistake. And I'm saying it here. If it is not true, please let them.
They made a mistake in what?
In the ranking, in our placement. That is
all of the statistics?
No, the one that concerns Imo. They admitted that.
Very important.
Yes.
What particular ranking is that?
Well, whatever ranking they use, what he quoted.
Because you've talked about ease of doing business.
Yes, ease of doing business.
You say that you're five. You're number 5 in Nigeria. Is that not what you said?
Yes, that's what I said.
Well, they say you're number 11.
No. I said ease of doing business, we are number 11. GDP growth, we are number 5. And the IGR generation, we are number 5. That's what I said. Number 11. Number 11 out of that.
They say you're number 11 here. That's why I'm asking. With which particular index here would you say that they were wrong? I mean, you have to be able to say which particular one you raised with them.
He said here that they ranked us 26th of
36 states.
26th out of 36 states in terms of performance, in terms of this. And I said it is not true because budget recanted the statement they made. I have it on record. And in fact, the person who reported it, we were able to get through to him and presented him with the facts, and they refuted it. And I have it on record. I can forward it to you when I leave here.
Well, we have. Okay, your final word. Just a few seconds because we need to go.
Also, give me final word.
You just spoke now.
No. That wasn't my final word. I
Thank you
responded to a question.
The reality on ground in Imo is that the government of Senator Hope Uzodinma has dismantled the foundations of good governance put in place by our party.
All right, gentlemen, we need to go.
My final word too.
Declan Emenumba,
Yes.
Commissioner for Information,
Yes.
Imo State, Collins Oporozo, Publicity Secretary, PDP Imo State. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. We will be back in just a moment. Join us again.
In the month of Nigeria's 60th anniversary in 2020, young people from across the board hit the streets to demand an end to police brutality with a specific call for the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS, accused of perpetrating atrocities including extrajudicial killings. A movement triggered from an incident in Delta State after a young man was arrested, shot and left for dead allegedly by members of SARS, although the facts were disputed by the Minister of State for Labour, Festus Keyamo, in a tweet in which he said the boy was alive. Like wildfire, the protest that greeted the Warri incident spread to other parts of the country, with youths at the vanguard. It was a defining October as protesters in Lagos took things a notch higher with daily convergence on the Lekki toll gate and other locations calling for the implementation of what they termed 5 for 5. Demanding for the release of arrested protesters, justice for victims of police brutality, prosecution of erring police officers, retraining of former SARS members, and an increase in the salary of police officers. Not too long, the then Inspector General of Police Muhammad Adamu disbanded SARS.
As a responsive and citizen-oriented police force, it is hereby directed as follows. 1. The Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigeria Police, otherwise known as SARS, is hereby dissolved across all formations, the 36 state police commands, and the Federal Capital Territory, where they currently exist.
And back in Lagos, the state government appealed to the protesters to disperse to enable it look into their demands. But the protesters, including some celebrities, refused to back down until they saw action. This was the rise of the Sorosoki movement.
For me, I will say it, the government messed with the wrong generation. So let me ask you, what do you want? What do you want? What's the prayer here right now? Because for 5. Yeah, but the government is already responding to that. How many times have they responded? We need actions. We need action. We're going to be here until we start seeing action.
On the night of October 20th, 2020, with protesters define and impose curfew, things turned sour after soldiers invaded the Lekki toll gate to disperse the protesters, leading to casualty that became a subject of controversy till today. The fallout was outrage, condemnation, and even carnage as hoodlums cashed in on the situation, took to the streets to destroy and loot. Even police stations and officers were not spared. To consider the demands by the protesters, judicial panels on restitution for victims of SARS-related abuses and other matters were set up to bring closure, and recommendations were made to the state governments. And so far, some persons have been awarded various forms of compensation. 2 years after, on the second anniversary of the End SARS protest, there are still unanswered questions. Have all the protesters been released? Has police brutality truly stopped? How many erring police officers have faced justice? Have the youths been truly pacified? Jeffrey Uzongo.
All right, welcome back. Well, yes, we've got Mr. Tony Ojukwu, CFR. He is the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission. He's also a Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Good morning. Thank you for coming. Oh, that's yeah, sorry.
OFR, not CFR.
OFR.
Yes.
So congratulations on both ends anyways.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
That is in order.
Thank you.
But talking about this answers, I haven't seen where we are 2 years on. Because you occupy a vantage position having to do with several petitions and all what's going on about human rights. Have you seen a fundamental change 2 years on?
Well, I would say we have made some progress. We are not where we were before. At least the panels have sat all over 29 states and concluded their findings. But we need to do more than that. For instance, the various states have not paid compensation. It's only the Lagos State government and the National Human Rights Commission that have paid compensation. They seem to be waiting for the federal government, and I don't think they should, because these are citizens of their states, and the police was serving the state government while these violations occurred. And in other spheres like road construction and so on and so forth, state governments do take on this and then claim money from the federal government later. So I don't see why.
I see that there's been some controversy around that. I mean, with the panels that have been set up and the fact that, compensation has not been paid. I would like us to, delve into that a little more much later. But I noticed that the very first question which Chamberlain asked you as to whether, you know, we have made progress. You've chosen your words very carefully. I see that you're a bit reluctant to know how to touch on that. You say we've made some progress in some areas. But really, the question is, has anything changed with police brutality? That's a key question. Yes, we know that SARS was disbanded, but, you know, in its place, what has now been erected, and as a whole, has our police force undergone a reorientation?
There is no doubt that there is still police brutality. And I believe that there's nowhere in the world you will not see police brutality. What we should clamor for is accountability for it, because I don't think there will ever be a time in world history, either in Nigeria or anywhere, that you will not experience brutality. But the difference here is that if people brutalize people, they should be held accountable. That is the challenging point in our own polity. So, and what we are striving to do is that all those who are involved in police brutality are held accountable. That's the point I was trying to make. Because I cannot say here and tell you as a human rights person that it's possible that there will never be police brutality, because the Inspector General of Police will give instructions, but the people who are going to carry it out will do what they want to do anyway.
I imagine that in the aftermath of that, of the NSAS protest, particularly looking at, you know, just what happened afterwards, the carnage that was witnessed in many parts of the country, police stations also were not spared, and even police personnel too also lost their lives. We saw that at some point it would seem that they were totally demoralized, even though those who were clamoring for a change in terms of, you know, were clamoring for, let's say, the eradication of police brutality, also at some point began to realize that even the police themselves were victims. But when the carnage eventually happened, there was no differentiation between who was police, who was an ordinary civilian, who, you know, it affected almost everybody. Businesses were affected, etc. Now, I imagine that as a result of that, there might have been some, let's say, conflict or a strain between how the police was perceived and how it does and how it did its work within the, you know, civil public which it was meant to serve. For you as someone who, you know, strides both worlds, because Human Rights Commission is also a government agency, but you have a duty to protect human rights, and you understand just where the protests, you know, were coming from. How have you been able to, would you say that there was a need for a reconciliation between the police and the people to understand basically what went wrong and perhaps move forward from there? Has anything of the sort happened?
Yeah, that's the whole idea of police reforms, right? I mean, after the NSAS, it was agreed that there has to be holistic police reforms, which will involve retraining them, which will involve improving their welfare, which will involve accountability, which will involve, you know, providing the equipment with which they have to do their work. For instance, the issue of torture at times is, you know, propelled by maybe lack of forensics to be able to analyze offenses or crimes, and then in order to force people to confess. Because, for instance, if there was common CCTV camera in a venue or in a venue where crime was committed, you know, it demystifies the whole thing, because you will not be denying what has been shown on the camera. So, and when that happens and the police does not have that facility, you know.
That's not quite the question I'm asking. So yes, police reforms, it can happen, that conversation can happen within the police and maybe even in the general larger public. But I'm looking at the
issue of reconciling the people.
Exactly, the reconciliation that ought to have happened after what we witnessed 2 years ago between, I don't know, let's say between the police and the public, which it was meant to serve.
Well, you see, like, there's a policy of community policing. That is what it's all about, that the people should be involved in their protection at all levels. And the community policing program is going on. Maybe not at the rate we would expect. Maybe not, but you see, really, the differences between the people and the police is really entrenched. It's not a day's problem. It's a big challenge.
But Mr. Jugu, there's something I've been struggling to wrap my head around. I've read the piece where you said that the NHRC receives, I think you said about 1 million cases.
1.7 million as at last year.
As at last year?
Yeah.
Is this, what's the frequency? Is that annually or something?
Annually, yeah.
Annually?
Yeah.
Wow. How can that be?
Is it just the police brutality?
No. General complaints on human rights violation, yeah, not only the police. That includes complaints on issues of economic, social, and cultural rights, complaints from women and children, complaints from vulnerable groups, and then complaints from civil and political rights, which are mainly, that's from law enforcement agencies, cutting across police, civil defense, road safety, and everybody.
Yeah.
Wow.
You have admitted that police brutality might not be totally eradicated, but of course we want to be able to see it come down to the barest minimum, and that when it happens, you know, people are held accountable. I mean, that's, I believe, is the goal right now. But even in terms of bringing it down, would you say that there has been any change whatsoever in terms of how the police is now structured and how it carries out its work?
Well, I must tell you that, you know, at times this job is very frustrating because it does seem as if there is no visible change in the way the police carries out its functions. However, we have come across cases where police officers have told us, we know you are here to monitor us. So to that extent, that means some of them have at the back of their mind that there is a Human Rights Commission that will probably go after them. Now, what we think going forward is that it's not enough to just have a one-off NSAS panel. And part of the recommendations which we made to government, which government accepted, is that there should be a permanent mechanism for dealing with these accountability cases. It is important that every police officer who is out there must know, as long as you are free to behave how you like, but know that somebody is going to come after you. We think that if that is maintained for a reasonable length of time, it will dawn on any police officer that it's no longer business as usual. And that is the level where we reach, and it will start being effective. So this one-off panels is not going to solve the problem. What will solve the problem is that we are going to start off another set of panel hearings on brutality, because since after we collected those information, brutality has continued. So are those ones going to go scot-free? No. Wow. So we need to start another panel that will now look at the cases that has happened in recent times, so that people out there will know that any day you commit brutality, your day of recording is coming.
So apart from compensation that was paid, sorry, Chimole, paid to the people who, you know, came to complain, a number of them got some compensation, at least some amounts of money. Some people will say that, you know, for those who lost their lives or who have lost their livelihoods or are unable to work, you know, the amounts of money that were paid were really not commensurate. In some instances, it was just an acknowledgement and maybe the state trying to apologize as to what people have gone through. But for those who were the perpetrators of this act of brutality, what happened to them? Are they being prosecuted? I mean, are they facing any justice on any front?
Yeah, that was why what I was trying to explain initially, that there are stages. Now, after the panels have sat and indicted certain officers, you know, you cannot prosecute an officer unless you dismiss the officer. Now, this has to go to Police Service Commission that has the mandate to discipline police officers. It will now formally try them, give them fair hearing, and dismiss them, and then hand them over for prosecution.
That process hasn't started?
It has started. The process has started. But
where are we in that process?
Well, at least the communication of the indicted officers has been communicated to them. So we now expect them to use their internal mechanisms, because there are internal mechanisms to discipline officers. You have to query them, they have to answer those queries, it has to be investigated. Then like all our findings may not be perfect. It may not be perfect.
You know what? When you also spoke about those states who have not paid any compensation, maybe they are waiting for the federal government. I mean, some of them, I think Rivers was quoted to have said, well, I didn't say that I was going to pay compensation. We don't know if that means he will not pay eventually. How is that? Do you get any indication that they eventually or look forward to be, because look, we're in election year, some of them will be gone. Another government comes in, we don't know what happens to that. So what should the approach be to ensure that something is done about that?
You recall that the setting up of the SARS panels nationwide was as a result of the decision of the National Economic Council.
Yeah.
And now, now that we have concluded the panel sittings, we have asked all the states to send in their reports. And we want to take this back to the National Economic Council and tell them, yes, this stage of sitting has finished. This is a summary of the indictment. This is a summary of the compensation to be paid, and we'll watch what next they're going to do. So I think it lies in the purview of the National Economic Council to direct the states on what to do.
There was one particular item which you said that the NHRC was going to see or ensure that I think compensation is paid to some of this. Is this the matter?
Yes,
is
that is part of it, because, I mean, as the Human Rights Commission, these are human rights issues. I mean, I'll be failing in my duty if I don't pursue this. So we are committed to making sure that all these panel recommendations are taken up to appropriate quotas. We don't have the money. It is government that has to provide the money.
But if there's one, if there can be one major thing that you'd like to see change, either implemented at either the federal or state level to speak to the heart of this matter, what would that be?
It would be to really prosecute these officers, because that is the thing that can help us to change the system. Officers who have been indicted, is not enough to pay compensation. Yes, compensation is a good gesture. Don't forget that this is the first time compensation is being paid for human rights violations. So that's a quantum leap. We can't take that away. However, we can't stop at that. We would want to see that these people who have been indicted for police brutality are really, prosecuted or dismissed or disciplined. And you remember, even the Anti-Torture Act, which has been passed, now makes using torture for investigation a crime. So there's no reason why any officer who has tortured, the law is there now. It wasn't there before 2017, but the Anti-Torture Act is now in place. So any police officer who is indicted for torture must, by our law, be prosecuted for it. And that is what we're expecting that should happen.
And maybe they might even need to have a second look at that law, because some may hide behind that law saying it's a lot of process bureaucratically to fire an officer, then come to prosecution. So who knows? But at the end of the day, it's an ongoing conversation, and we'll keep tabs on it and hope that the best things are done for this country, as a matter of fact. Thank you for coming on. Tony Ojukwu, Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission. That C looks like, C and O, they can be deceptive. It's about as Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
All right, so guys, we're talking about the flood matter now, ravaging different states. Well, Lagos seems to be doing something about that. That we will find out in a moment.
Call this another human rights issue. You might not be wrong, but hey, let's get into the conversation with Olale Konshedende, who is Permanent Secretary, Office of Drainage Services, Ministry of Environment and Water Resources in Lagos State. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
A quick clarification on the advisory given out to Lagosians living in specific areas. What informed that? Can you tell us more about that?
Thank you very much. The advice was particularly targeted at people living in low-lying areas, floodplains, wetlands that have now been inhabited, without the proper arrangements being made for the natural habitat of that place, which is the water. And this particularly along the River Ogun alignment. At this time of the year, periodically, we find out that October is now about the peak of the rainy season. While to manage that, we have some river gauges and along the river Alama within the lagoon to monitor the stage of the river. We actually equally collaborate with the Ogun River Basin Development Authority to tell us the volume of water that is passing through the Onyo Dam, because the dam is supposed to, detain storm water from the upland part of Abeokuta. But when the dam capacity is attained, they need to let the excess water pass through.
And they are going to have to pass through certain communities, Alakwere, Agri.
No, it's going to come from Abeokuta through Ifakojaye, Alagbole areas of Lagos. But Lagos is the most downstream of 8 river systems. But Ogun is the one that is of particular interest now, because that is the area where we have habitation at the moment.
Now, the advisory, sorry, Bukola, I'm sorry. The advisory has been put out. Have these people been significantly informed?
Yes. That's the essence of their advice. I mean, the advice is supposed to be to the public, so that everybody will hear, and word of mouth.
Do we have local government officers speaking to them, at the various levels, so that they won't claim that they don't know? We understand that there are some advisory put out sometime in September, middle of September this year. That was last month. How significantly have people adhered to that advisory put out about a month ago?
Adherence is not until. With the advice is just, we advise is for them to be aware that this might happen because of data that we have at our fingertips. I'll give an example. For this, where we are now, Isheri North area, we have an estate in this area. When the River Ogun gets to a 20-meter stage on our gauge, that is the baseline, that's the flood level. But right now we are at 19.8. So it behaves that we need to, okay, fine, we are getting to that. We might not get there. We might not get, but we can't predict the rainfall event outside Lagos that will flow into Lagos. So that gauge is telling us we're getting there. So people be aware. If you get into Isheri now, you'll see water on their roads already. But before it becomes too impactful, when it's happening, please relocate and let's...
It's a vivid picture of the scale of, flooding that we're expecting in these areas. There are about 10 or 11 of them. So how devastating will it be? Their living conditions will not be livable.
It will be livable. Okay. It will just be an inconvenience. Accessibility will be a problem. Accessibility will be the problem because you have to wade into the flood situation to get to your house. From the readings we are getting, because 2022 has actually not been as bad as 2021 or 2020 in October, because we're comparing data now. But we're just like, the gauge telling us we're at this level, let's be aware, let's be indicative. And from the data from the dam too, the releases is not comparable to last year.
Speak to the video that is on the screen that you can see right now. This flooding, it's of course amateur video in Aboru. Was there data to predict that this was going to happen? Aboru.
Okay, now, this was about this week. Well, this is not a river flooding. Okay. This is an urban flood. This is actually along the Okwoba alignment that we're presently expanding the capacity. The intensity of that rain within the 2 hours it fell is like a 1 in a 50-year rainfall. I have not seen that kind of rain since I've been in environment, in drainage. Okay. But it happened. But I can tell you within 2 hours of that rainfall, the water had passed.
What informed it? Because the water passed, but then the effects, the consequences on the lives of the people.
Well, I'll always say this. When you can't control the volume of water that will come from the sky, that is beyond any human capacity. And I keep saying, no engineering infrastructure can contain everything God throws at you naturally. What the drainage is supposed just to be a conveyor system. Once the conveyor is perfect, is flowing, yes, you will have some inconveniences, but it will not stay. That's what Lagos is targeted.
So the conveyor here, was it significant?
Very significant.
But then it still flooded the houses up to
2
almost
hours.
Half.
You see, how will I say it now?
The concern here, Mr. Shidende, I'm sure you'll understand, is the people's lives. Bukola here just mentioned the living conditions of people that are definitely affected, things that many people...
Can you compare, why not, Lagos is not peculiar, but can you compare Lagos to other parts that have seen flooding?
We're talking about Lagos now.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
So let's just stick there.
I'm telling you the engineering of it. that you cannot contain rainfall event totally. Because when you talk of intensity, within a short time, if the same volume of rainfall had fallen over 24 hours, we won't see any flooding. Because as it is falling, I'm coming, as it is falling, it is flowing out.
Is Aboru along a floodplain?
Well, yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that a number of people, questions a number of people have asked is, look, if people are building along floodplains, someone definitely gave them approval to do it.
Your assumption, you're assuming.
That's what it would be.
That is not true. People build without approval.
But at the end of the day, the buildings are there. State governments haven't gone there to demolish the buildings, and there are casualties.
Sorry. If government starts demolishing everything in wetland areas, mind you, people develop before governance gets to their area. Every negotiation wants to be a landowner. You go to the wetland, landowner sell land to you, you didn't get approval, you didn't go to the authority to tell you, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. Survival instinct. Right? Now, government asks, okay, now you have put your hard-earned resources together, you've built, I want to take out your property because I want to save your life. Which is better? Demolish your building or periodically tell you come, it's going to flood, get out.
Where does this
that's going to be, sorry, Ayo, that's going to be
Do you understand?
subject
So it's
to...
a devil and a deep blue sea situation because people are coming to Lagos and building and sprawling all over.
That's going to be subject to another level of investigation if we were to ascertain if indeed those people got
No, they have no approval. I can tell you for a fact they have no approval.
Well,
nobody approved a wetland development in Lagos.
It has to be subject to empirical, survey because
I'm saying on public media that it is
we're
not
talking about
possible.
Thousands of houses there. But you said something significant earlier. You said there's no engineering solution to tackle anything that God throws at you, and that brings me to this, concern or this fact of the matter. The River Ogun has tributaries.
Yes.
There's Ogbara, there's Osho, there is Opeki, just to mention.
Definitely. I like your investigation.
Yes, just to mention a few of the tributaries, the Minister of Water Resources said something significant yesterday, that there are tributaries to the River Benue that is receiving the release of water that ought to have been dammed. So isn't there supposed to have been a response over the years to the rising water level being received by these tributaries to the River Ogun, which react following the release of water as well from the Onyo Dam, such that we can check
these tributaries are downstream of Onyo Dam. They are downstream of Onyo Dam. The dam is before these tributaries. So when you say, I was going to say that everything coming into Lagos is not from Ogun River only. There are other contributory catchments that are even downstream of the dam that is coming to Lagos. Lagos is a coastal state, and we receive everything from upland part of our catchment. So, number one, river management is not a state affair. It's a federal affair. That's why I have the Rivers Development Authorities managing the rivers, and they have quite a number of them. OBDA is the one that handles, our southwestern part of the country. So, but that's why we have to interact with them to get information from them. And I'm sure I learned that they actually did a study on the Ogun River on further developments to do along the river alignment in terms of damming or management of this release of this intense rainfall that we're getting right now. So we're expecting that in a short time they'll be able to put in place those infrastructure.
True, river management is a federal government affair.
Yes, please.
But then again, over the years, have state governments prioritized this? Has it been a concern such that they are saying we should build other dams to check, to mitigate?
That's why I said that.
Have they raised it? Have they prioritized it?
OBDA, the federal government already had a study.
Has it been a conversation at all at the state
We
level?
have an interaction regularly.
Even though river management is a federal government matter, the impact is felt in states.
That is why we need to collaborate with the federal agency in charge. They tell us what they're doing. We advise.
That's not the answer to the question. Has it been a part of the conversation at the state level?
If it's not, I wouldn't be giving you information I am giving you, that they have done a study on the necessary interventions they are going to be doing on that river alignment. That's why I'm telling that there's a conversation, and I'm telling you authoritatively that they are working at it.
So what's going to be the outcome? Are there recommendations to the effect that
there is a study that has a recommendation? I won't be able to give you the details of their study. All I know is that they have done the study, and they have a recommendation of intervention that they will be doing. Okay. So the MD of the River Basin Authority should be in a position to give you the details of what they intend to do on the river.
Okay.
But I'll still say this. The river has its wetland, definitely. So everybody has a role to play. We can't keep doing something negative and expect a third party to solve the problem. If you are going into a wetland, ask for information on how best to develop sustainably in a wetland. I mean, a wetland is easily identifiable. An area you go to all year round stays green. You might not see water there, but once the vegetable is green all year round, that is a wetland.
But one of the questions that one would want to also ask around this, Mr. Shudende, is the consequences are certainly coming if the people do not move. What is the government's plan?
Oh, well, emergency response is actually not my mandate, but I know my colleague at the Lagos State Emergency Management Authority is equally prepared. Like, I mean, the state government has
Speaking of consequences, sorry, Ayo, this is critical because the NIMET has said that more rains are coming. We had that conversation. And it's curious that Lagos, being a coastal state, and some other coastal states have not been affected by the massive impact of the flooding that we've seen in a number of states of the Federation. Though there's been some predictions of some states that will be affected, but is this something that is coming that will be on the scale of Bayelsa?
No,
Lokoja?
definitely not. Oh, most definitely not. I can tell you that.
How
From
can
the
you be
data
so
we
sure?
have, well, when you compare, statistics is about data comparison. I told you 2022 has not been near 2021 or 2020 figures from the dam or even rainfall, or even our own measuring gauges. But like I said, we're almost there. October is our peak. October is about two-thirds gone. So we're hoping that in the next 10 days, we should be able to weather. But we're just saying, perchance, in case, another 1 in 50-year rainfall happens, like we saw at Okoba, Aboru, like you mentioned, we should be aware. We're just being Boy Scouts here, being prepared.
But, you know, if it happens,
yes,
it will be too late in the day to evacuate people.
No. That's why we gave the early alert. So people should be prepared.
Exactly the point.
Evacuate before it happens.
We were prepared for what we were told. We had awareness. We had information ahead from NIMET, from the Hydrological Agency, that it will happen in a good number of states, more than 200 days of rains, they told us. I'm sure you're aware of that.
We did, yeah.
And then what happened in Bayelsa happened, what happened in a number of other states in the country happened. And we're still reeling in the after effects until now. So that's why I'm asking the question. The communities that have been mentioned in Lagos, in the event that it happens, it will be too late in the day to rescue significantly and avoid loss of lives and property. Yes or no?
No. Can I answer that?
Please.
The essence of the early warning is for you not to caught napping, for you not to caught trapped in that situation.
In the event that people do not move, that's the question that I'm asking.
That is taking it to the... You are now putting before me a response that shouldn't be mine, because I have told you, sir, you have this risk facing you. Please evacuate. Commonsensical, I expect you to heed my warning. Not to now say, I don't care, I'll stay. When I'm there, you come and rescue me. I mean, are we having a conversation here?
Like how many people...
The idea of governance is to bring to the public domain, that's why I'm here, that this is a possibility. Let's have a handshake. I've played my part, please respond accordingly. If it doesn't happen, everybody's fine.
Historically,
we go back.
How have people responded to that? Historically.
That's why we're making the noise. We're talking about it. We should, like I said before we came on camera, that lifestyle change is a requirement.
Okay, just a
we need
very,
to talk
very
and
quick
listen
one.
to government.
Just a very, very quick one, Mr. Shudende. Like, how many people are likely to be affected in the event? About what's the average population that you can guess we might be looking at here?
Probably like 100,000, 200,000.
In all of those communities?
Yes. They're actually just low-lying areas along the River Ogo.
Okay.
So we're not expecting a massive Bayelsa-like or Kogi-like situation.
We're not also expecting this to happen, but in the
we're not expecting. We're just saying that let us be prepared.
Okay. Olalikon Shidaide, Permanent Secretary, Office of Drainage Services, Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, Lagos State. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Considerations this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, your own contributions to the program is what we have. Do we have some messages yet? Okay, maybe not just yet, but I don't know, guys. Do you have anything over there in Abuja?
Well, other than move to the high ground.
Indeed, as time does fly when you're having fun, but if you have been forewarned, please be forearmed.
Oh, yes, indeed. Thank you all for watching. What a week it's been, and we do hope you stay safe and do the best you can to keep the country going. Thank you for watching. I am Chamberlain, so have a good one.
Indeed, have a great weekend. Thank you for watching. I'm Malpo Ogun Yusuf.
Thank you for watching. Just to add that government should also make adequate preparations in case there are emergencies. I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
If you see something or hear something, tell someone who may not have heard it. As Marquez said, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Just remember Zebediah. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Ayo Makinde.